Stories are written with goals in mind. The good ones, anyway. A sharp piece of writing won't just succeed by having no technical mistakes, it'll succeed by affecting the person experiencing it. This is true of books, films, and, in the case of this discussion, video games. Danganronpa, one of my favorite video game series of all time. While the franchise has grown and branched out much farther than its humble beginnings, the mainline trilogy is very consistent. In all 3 games, 16 students are trapped in a school setting with their only means of escape being to murder another student and get away with it. By the way, in case it isn't obvious, spoiler warnings here. The Danganronpa games are murder mystery visual novels, each ranging from 25 to 40 hours long, with the story being divided into 6 chapters. With each chapter, another motive. With each motive, another murder. With each murder, another class trial, where all students act as detective, witness, suspect, and lawyer to discover the truth. With each culprit, an execution. The series' primary theme? The perseverance of hope in times of complete despair, and what those 2 words really mean. Danganronpa 1, Trigger Happy Havoc, is an absolute masterpiece. Danganronpa 2, Goodbye Despair, despite having to live up to its predecessor's quality and even top it, is another masterpiece. Danganronpa V3, Killing Harmony, is a mixed bag. Despite checking the same boxes as the others, the general consensus from fans is that this game was a step down in quality. What makes the discussion surrounding it, and specifically my feelings, so complex is that it's not a matter of the game playing it safe and doing okay but not quite hitting the highs of the previous entries. It's an example of such wild writing choices that within one game, the series has its most brilliant twists and most mind-numbing flops. I'll try to limit the information given here to what's strictly necessary. For example, the names of the killers and victims. Necessary. The magic bear cubs that guard the giant bird cage that the game takes place inside of? Not necessary. The most notable to me is this. The best writing of all 3 games and the worst writing of all 3 games are directly next to each other. Danganronpa V3's 3rd trial is the series' lowest point, and the 4th trial is its highest. I intend to prove this opinion as objectively correct, as all my opinions are, and use my analysis to propose how the successes of Trial 4 could be used to correct the shortcomings of Trial 3. Allow me to elucidate. As it's a deeply contentious thing to just point at writing and say, is good or is bad, I did some research. Reviewing the plotline of all 3 games, I found that despite having a clear formula, each individual story took consistent steps to exceed its expectations and leave its own mark amongst the others. Thus, I've made a framework for what we're looking for. A quote-unquote good Danganronpa trial should do 3 things. 1. Present a compelling mystery. 2. Change our understanding of the characters and/or their dynamic going forward. And 3. Further the narrative theme of hope and despair. The first trial in the first game can be our example. You discover the body of your childhood friend in your dorm room, with a set of numbers written in blood on the wall beside her. Compelling mystery. The investigation reveals that she was murdered only because she tried and failed to frame you for murder, changing our understanding of the characters and their dynamic. The killer is found, but witnessing his brutal execution instills in all the survivors the truth that despite their best efforts, the killing game they were trying to avoid has begun. Narrative theme of despair. Mystery, change, despair. Chapter 3 of Danganronpa V3 fails on all 3 of these points. 1. What is the mystery here? Who killed Anji Yonaga and Tenko Chabashira? What information do we have? They were killed in a newly unlocked area of the school near the research lab of Mega Creep Korekiyo Shinguji. How were they killed? Anji was stabbed by a katana from Mega Creep Korekiyo's research lab. Tenko died mysteriously during a seance led by Mega Creep Korekiyo that Mega Creep Korekiyo insisted on and prepared himself. Okay, well, sounds like the creep did it. What are his alibis? The first murder was a locked room mystery, but other than that, no alibi. The second murder happened during his seance. No witnesses corroborating where he was for the first, 3 witnesses in a dark room who are fully distracted for his second. I'm about to shock you with this one, kids. He did it. 2. What changes about how we see the characters or how they interact going forward? Honestly, not much. Korekiyo was an unsettling guy from the moment you met him. He's lanky and dark with a mask concealing his mouth and an eerie, drawling voice no matter the language you're listening to. All the trial does is confirm that he is very unsettling. But here's the thing. You do not have a reason to think about this trial again after it's over. Yes, Korekiyo's particular brand of incest serial killer insanity is memorable, but the series is filled with memorably insane killers. It's the Memorably Insane Killer franchise. It doesn't change anything for him to be a killer outside of the game's story. It barely changes how you viewed him before, it doesn't affect how you see the other characters after. And the twist doesn't come until after his guilty verdict comes in, so you have no time to soak it in before he's DEAD dead. The girls who were killed don't have any major developments post-death either. Angie was a self-determined cult leader who died doing self-determined cult leader stuff. Tenko was keen on being friends with Himiko and died doing a seance to commune with Angie's spirit, something she thought would make Himiko happy. There's no impact here. 3. What does this trial have to say about hope or despair? Pretty much nothing. Korekiyo kills to try and please his ghost/sister/girlfriend, but there's no urgency to this motive. He claims she's already taken residence in his body and has resumed acting as his doting sister lover. Korekiyo kills women so they can join her as friends in the afterlife, but it's just the psycho version of getting someone flowers. He's not even that broken up about the fact that he's going to die before killing his goal number of women. The murders aren't totally meaningless, so it doesn't really imbue you with despair, but there's not really hope behind it either. The feeling it leaves you with is just kind of a general, icky, well, that was uncomfortable. You could slice this trial out of the greater narrative and the overall plot wouldn't be affected. Intermission! I just want to note here that despite the criticisms I raise against this game, even when it's at its weakest, it still has so much going for it. The music, the individual personalities of the characters, and goodness gracious, the voice acting is just phenomenal. Korekiyo Shinguji may be less developed than other Danganronpa killers, but Todd Haberkorn's performance just slams it out of the park. It's important to remember that a game like this is only worth criticizing because there's so much to compliment. And riding that compliment train, let's apply our framework for a successful trial onto the very next chapter of the game, the best trial in Danganronpa history, Chapter 4. 1. What's the mystery here? This chapter puts a unique spin on the murder mystery formula by having the crime take place in a completely new environment, a VR world. Miu Iruma, mechanical prodigy, builds a simulated environment as an escape from their dire situation, and winds up asphyxiated in the real world due to the murdering of her in-game avatar. This VR concept breathes new life into the tried and true investigation formula. It's a new art style, a new environment, and most importantly, a new set of rules to consider. You have full access to a list of who was online and when, what and where all the objects in the world are, and even where each character went when first exploring the world. Because you don't have to scramble for this information, the who done it and how aspect has a much larger focus. No immediate assumptions can be made, so you need to thoroughly explore your options. You evolve your thinking past its normal limitations in order to conquer the mystery. 2. What changes about how we see the characters or how they interact going forward? The case doesn't just develop the killer's personal arc, it does the same for the victim and the witness to the crime. The victim, Miu, turns out to be a would-be killer who designed the VR world with the explicit goal of committing murder by taking advantage of the code she designed herself. Our witness and would-be victim Kokichi discovered the plot against him, but couldn't do anything about it on his own. By the game world's laws, he physically couldn't fight back if Miu went through with attacking him. This meant he had to seek help from an outside source, help that wouldn't hesitate to kill on his behalf. Problem is, up to this point he had been a consistent nuisance to the rest of the cast. He lies during investigations and insults everyone he comes into contact with in the crudest ways possible. Kokichi had to get close to someone else and share enough information with them that they'd believe a murder was the only way to navigate the situation. This plan succeeds. The killer he creates? Gonta Gokuhara. Gonta, despite being a large, physically fit man, is the last person you'd expect to strangle someone to death. He's a softie with big round glasses and an endearing if stunted vocabulary whose biggest goal in life is to become the perfect gentleman. He's timid and chivalrous and consistently cries over the tragedies that happen over the course of the game. He loves bugs so much, you guys! It's a shock to the player that Gonta could ever hurt another person. In fact, even Gonta himself is shocked when he's accused of committing the crime, because that's the most important piece of the puzzle. As far as Gonta knows, he didn't commit the crime. 3. What does this trial have to say about hope and despair? In my opinion, this is the theme of despair taken to its furthest conclusion. The killer in this trial has no memory of committing the murder. The cords on Gonta's VR headset got mixed up, and as a result, he retained nothing from his time in the virtual world. He forgot the supposed truth he'd learned there, that the world outside the protected facility of the killing game is in ruins, and the only mercy he can give his friends is a swift death for everyone after he successfully gets away with a murder. This was the trap he laid for Mew with Kokichi, and this is the truth that he forgets the moment he returns to the real world. This right here is where the series truly invokes despair. Your victory in the trial doesn't come by tearing down the machinations of a grinning psychopath. You have to gently explain what happened to a crying Gonta. He tries to listen, but he can never really understand why he did it. And it doesn't matter, because you can't save him. All you can do is watch him be brave as he accepts an execution that this version of him doesn't deserve. Now that we've summarized the two trials, what can we take away from Gonta's story that can be used to fix Korekiyo's? Using our 3 marks of great trial, I propose one of 3 possible rewrites. 1. Compelling mystery. If you don't want it making any waves for the current before and after of the story, you should minimize the suspicion on Korekiyo in the current mystery. So we'll change the people at the scene of the second crime. The protagonist, the killer, and the victim obviously have to stay, but the seance requires 2 more people. As the case currently is, those 2 people are Himiko. She's a close friend of both victims who clearly has a slim to none chance of committing a crime. Kokichi, the game's main heel. He acts as a driving force of the plot, so you know he's not being booted from the story anytime soon. Make the 2 extra characters in this scene ones that narratively could be seen as committing the crime. I propose Tsumugi and Maki. 2. Changing how we see the characters. Change Chapter 3's positioning in the game so it switches places and becomes Chapter 2 instead. This would require several story beats to be reworked as it changes the order of deaths, but I think there'd be some instant benefits. One of the biggest issues with the trial is just how tired it is for the 3rd trial in the game to be a double murder. It's expected, which is the last thing you want for a mystery. The gut punch of Trial 4 comes from how attached you are to the characters, so we can reverse this by turning Korekiyo's murders into a tragedy where we never got the chance to really know any of the people involved. The lack of development for the victims would be less annoying, and the unsettling personality of the killer would make you more suspicious of the larger remaining pool of characters. 3. Hope and despair. This is the biggest leap, but hear me out. There's one real reason that Chapter 4 is superior writing, and that's the way it capitalizes on its opportunities to stand out. In that case, it's the reveal of Gonta as the killer. Kokichi, angry at what he thinks is a betrayal from Gonta since Gonta isn't following their plan, at this point we don't know about the amnesia, announces plain and clear that the culprit is Gonta. It's not just something you figure out on your own, it's a truth you're slapped in the face with. You assume he's lying. The game itself is filled with lie after lie from everyone, especially him. But as you go further into the trial, you feel your gut sink because he's not lying. So I propose a similar change to Trial 3 that would still be different enough that it wouldn't blunt the sharpness of 4's plot twist. In Chapter 3, an extra rule is added to the killing game. In the event 2 murders happen in a close span of time, only the first murderer is at risk of being executed at the trial. Even if the second murderer is caught, they won't be held accountable. In practice, this rule only pads time. You reveal Korekiyo as the killer in the second murder, but he says, "I killed Tenko, not Angie." Meaning you have to slog through another hour of trial time just for it to still be him. Imagine, for a moment, if we turned this lie into the truth. If Korekiyo was still a murderer, a serial killer, but he didn't kill Angie. According to the rules, only Angie's killer is going to die if they're discovered in the trial. Imagine if he lived past those events? If you had to spend at least one more chapter of the game with him? What makes the heel characters from each game, Byakuya, Komaeda, and Kokichi respectively, so memorable is the amount you go through with them. Hearing their perspectives and seeing them endlessly meddle and watching with bated breath to see if they're going to help or if they're plotting something sinister. It's getting to know the real them and waiting in anticipation to see what they do. Korekiyo has none of that, but he could, which is the biggest disappointment. I propose that if Angie Onaga accidentally inflicted her own fatal wound, Korekiyo Shinguji would instantly become an iconic character for the series. The player could experience a completely unique type of anger and excitement, the hope of an interesting game, the despair of a slaughter with no justice, a true change for the series that wouldn't mess up or mitigate anything else the game does well. Because Danganronpa V3 is a good game. It's just a shame the disparity in writing between chapters stops it from being a great game. Stories are written with goals in mind. The stories the Danganronpa games tell affect me. I just wish they all affected me the way I know they can. This video has been brought to you by the parts of Danganronpa's story that I somehow didn't need to explain for this. The fact that each character essentially has a superpower via their talent. The free time events. Angie possibly being possessed by a god. Anything about Shuichi Saihara. There's a functionally living AI robot throughout the entire game with his own thoughts, feelings, and opinions, equipped with both a camera function and rocket-powered combat capabilities. Okay, bye. Thank you for listening.